were born in a collection of terraced houses, somewhat similar to Coronation Street, all clustered together. And as a little lad, you know, from the back bedroom window, I could look down an alleyway and up another long back street and see the signal box on the main line from Manchester to go through Bolton. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, it'd be magnificent on a moonlit night. You know, you could hear the whistle blowing as it were approaching Bolton, the locomotive, and it'd bash across the end of this ginnel with the fire hall door open and big shaft of fire in the sky, and you could see like 2 characters on the footplate, you know, crouched in position. You know, that's really what inspired me and got me interested in steam engines.
Fred Dibnah had a passion for steam-powered engines and machinery, and he spent a large part of his life restoring them and driving them around. It's a passion that has helped us to see just how important steam power was in our history.
Fred's passion for steam was something which absolutely oozed out of his personality, and the idea of solid, shiny machines with brass surfaces and polished steel is something that, if you have the bug for that, is something which stays with you forever. But Fred had a particular way of getting that over to people, which was particularly good for television as well.
Fred's interest went back to the time he was a small boy.
Now we're almost born in the engine sheds, you know, it were only a slight detour on my way home from school to go to the engine sheds on Crescent Road, and the vision really has never left me, you know. There'd be row upon row of steam locomotives all getting steam up, and nearly dark in winter, you know, and all the smoke and all windows seem to be yellow in corners in all the little offices and everything, and that wonderful smell, you know, and fog and coal and black oil everywhere, you know. It were quite, to me, it were quite romantic, you know. I don't suppose it would have been to the modern day environmentalist a terrible place, but I enjoyed it. There's a lot of enthusiasm now for the steam railways, you know. It's a touch of when it's all gone, you know, everybody wants one, I think. But there's something about a steam locomotive, and when it's steamed up, it sort of comes to life, and it smells nice and all of that, you know, the sulphur in the smoke, you know, something that nobody, I don't think, can really explain. Can I come on board? Oh, there's a bit more room on here than last time they had me on, wasn't it? Whistle up it. 30 miles an hour. Beautiful. Casey Jones. To me, looking at a railway line now, you know, coming in and out of a big city, out in country, and all them stanchions and electric wires, you know, really terribly unsightly, you know, as against 2 beautiful silver streaks along in the fields, and just post and rail fences along each side, and the odd signal sticking up. You know, it looked a lot more picturesque then and more beautiful than what it is now. To me, now it's a hell of a mess, you know. I'm sure there could have been a better way than electricity. It's just cheap and convenient, and of course don't cost as much as steam engines.
Before Fred appeared on the scene, railway programmes on television, steam railway programmes, were seen as being very much the odd thing to be put on in the late hours of the night, and Fred brought it into the living rooms of millions of people. It was really very good indeed.
This locomotive behind me is a Stirling 060. That means it's got 6 driving wheels, and the actual crank axle is the middle one. And then, of course, the whole 6 are connected up with these outside connecting rods. And it was made in 1895. I mean, you've got to say something for them men who made these. Lasted all them years with, you know, maybe a few overhauls, but it's a great thing. And of course, they lasted forever. And they were sort of maids of all work. When they were first envisaged, they didn't even have a cab. I think I'll go and see if I can hitch a lift back to the station at the other end. Hi, how old's this one, Tony?
This was built in 1895 at Ashford in Kent.
Yeah. And it's, does it have much done to the boiler?
I think it was a bit of a pet for the apprentices.
Yeah,
they used to
always
do test pieces and what have you.
Yeah, for mending it, right? Yeah.
So all the plates are nice and thick, and the stayheads are in good condition.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Ah, so you got a good one.
When you see Fred riding on a steam locomotive, you're suddenly aware of how much fun it is for him, and you want to experience that too. It's much more fun than just reading it in a book or looking at it on the internet. And when he went to somewhere like the Bluebell line and showed us the people there who keep these things running, then he makes us appreciate not just our future technology, things that are being produced today, but also the real intricacy and specialisms that people had in the past. And I think that that's very important, that he gives us a sense through his own excitement and pleasure. He makes us enjoy it as well.
I enjoyed that. This locomotive behind me, Fenchurch, is what's known as a Terrier, which of course were like a very small locomotive and very popular in the southern counties and on the rural, like, little lines, you know. Designed by Mr. Stroudley in the 1870s, and they made quite a lot, you know. Not lots of interesting features about it, you know, like the exhaust can be converted from going up the funnel or diverted into the water tanks, which of course preheats the water and saves a bit of water that would normally condense in the atmosphere. I mean, considering it was made in 1872 and it's still here, it's quite a credit to Mr. Stroudley. I think I'll go and see Clive now, who's going to give me a few lessons in how to drive it. Bit of rash on the regulator. Keep it tickling over. Yeah.
And then you can accelerate a little bit more.
Yeah.
It is heavy, isn't it?
It's vicious, that, isn't it?
Fred was held in very great regard. A lot of us in the railway preservation movement are not very good at blowing our own trumpets. We do what we do it fairly quietly, and we bumble along merrily. What Fred did was to celebrate the world of steam, and the steam railway in particular, and the fact that he wasn't afraid to get on and have a go himself and enjoy himself. It was a fantastic thing, and people just loved the fact that he was there, his sense of fun, and that he was flying the flag for Britain's steam heritage.
Are you right, dear?
I think Fred's contribution to the standing of engineering history has been enormous.
You're like my lady fireman, eh?
There is this terrible cultural block almost that only people who wear sort of rigger boots and anoraks and are slightly socially challenged like steam engines.
Is this tank connected to the other one?
Yep, got a balancing pipe underneath.
So we're okay.
This awful word, the railway buff or steam buff. Fred wasn't that. You had to respect him. He was a working man. He had oily overalls. And as I say, he didn't just look at the subject out of context as an obsessive collector. He saw it as part of a whole world that he liked, whether it was chimneys or well-built buildings, stone, cobbles, the whole thing. He swept it all up. And so he made that contextualization of engineering history accessible.
The industrialisation of the great cities put a terrible strain on the antiquated water and sewage systems. Many new reservoirs were built, and of course to pump water to them, many steam pumping stations had to be built. This is one of the more ornate. Papplewick, built in 1884, pumped water to the city of Nottingham all the way through till 1969. These are the 6 Lancashire boilers that made the steam to drive the pumping engines. They were made in Manchester by W&J Galloway. Mr. Galloway improved the Lancashire boiler by inserting vertical water tubes at the end of the fire tubes, which greatly increased the steaming capabilities. And down here they used to burn 5 tons of coal a day on 3 of them. The other 3 were on standby, you know, they always did things like that at waterworks just in case. And the pressure's getting a bit low now, so I think I'll do a bit of stoking up and get Jeff to give me a lift, and then we can go and play with the steam engines round the corner. Come on, Jeff.
Well, I've done one side, Fred, so if you'll fire this side.
Right. Oh, small. When the engines and the building were finished, they were well under budget, and with all the money they had left over, they did all these wonderful embellishments like the stained glass windows and the terracotta bits outside, and the fish and the birds and everything. It's rather sad, really, that the general public never saw any of this, you know, only like the waterworks superintendent and maybe some of the operatives, you know. But it really shows you how proud the Victorians were of their engineering achievements.
Fred shows his love of the Victorian age a great deal through his appreciation of what he could see. And he looked at pumping engines being a thing of great beauty, for example, the water supply at Papplewick down at Nottingham and Ryhope up here in Sunderland. You see, a modern electric pump doesn't hold the same appeal. Look at some of those engines lasting 150 years, and they're still here. How many of our electric pumps are going to be here in 10?
These great beams, of course, transfer the power from the piston rod to the pump rods down the well or the shaft. And of course, they weigh 13 tons each. Have you ever wondered how they got them up here? Because there were no fancy cranes in them days. There's lots of lovely old-fashioned pictures exist with great piles of great baulks of timber, and they're basically jacking up the beam as the engine room came up, and then you slide them in over the top of the central beam that they pivot on. The eye bolts in the ceiling really are only for lifting bits and pieces up just to replace things like bearings or, you know, cotters and things of that nature.
Steam was Fred's thing entirely, whether it was our steamboat here, which he was very keen on, or the Newcomen engine, or other developments we've got, or anywhere. I mean, I don't think he could pass a chimney, which was his first interest, of course, without thinking, well, that's probably generating some steam. And then explaining to people what that steam was all about, whether he was driving his road engine or watching a stationary engine. I mean, steam was in his blood, if you could have such a thing.
And for his last series, he travelled around the country and gave us a real understanding of the practicalities of driving these engines.
The brand new fusible plug. It depends how many times you do it. Like, you can get away with a few do's, like with no water over the top, but one day it'll have you, you know, and that's it. You've got a ash pan off, fire bars out, black as hell, you know, terrible, you know. And it's always circumstances, you know, like no, all along flat, no hydrants. And then you come suddenly over the crest of an hill, the bloody great hole, you know, and the water disappears. What are you doing?
He was the common man in the streets that had made good. And people respected him because of his knowledge, his hands-on approach to everything. He didn't just talk about it, Fred. It wasn't that he was an armchair engineer, he'd read about it in the Victorian books. He went out there and did it. He was really a man out of his time because he had all his skills at his fingertips.
We have always been regarded as being slightly eccentric, wanting to play with dirty mechanical things, but that's the way we're made. And I think Fred's enthusiasm and interest made people understand that it was something that anybody could do and be interested in.
Right, well, pressure's dropping now, which means we need some more fire. fire down here.
And he always enjoyed meeting the next generation of enthusiasts. It's their interest that will keep the steam preservation movement alive.
So, we'll stop the engine, then we can open the fire hole door. And then put some coal in. Now, does it look as though it needs some? Yeah. Right, next to you there's a shovel. Got some coal enough already. If you'd like to lift that around. That's it. That will help build the fire up. Right in. That's about the right place. Just have a look. Right, look. Yep. Now we should be able to make some more steam now. Right, here's Fred.
Did you get all that, young Edward? Yeah. I see you managed all right. It don't matter what you do as long as you don't lose the shovel. Now then, John, how many of these young chaps have you got on your trust?
Well, at the moment we've got about 4 or 5 regulars.
Yeah.
And there are 1 or 2 extras who sort of appear now and again as the wind takes them. But about 4 or 5 who are regular and
it's very good, really.
Well, it's where the future of our preservation movement
Oh, it is, without a shadow of a doubt,
and we have to bring them on.
Yeah. You've got the right sort of cap for it, haven't you?
Yeah. We insisted on that.
Yeah. I've noticed in your shed you've got lots of projects afoot, you know. I think you don't mind if I go and have a look
there are
round
1 or
it.
2 things going on in there, I think you'll find.
I'll
see you later.
buzz off into the shed. What are you doing here then? Eh?
Well, we've just retubed the boiler and we're now having to expand the tubes, obviously make them watertight to stop any water coming out into the smoke box here.
Yeah, I've done a bit of that myself. It's hard work, innit? What's next stage? Fill it up with water.
Give it its pressure check.
Yeah, that's very good, yeah. And if it passes, the boiler inspector will give you a certificate and you can light a fire in it then. And then he'll come down and see it blowing off and then you can set off to a steam engine rally somewhere. That's a good day, that, when that happens.
You do the trunnion bar with the grease gun, because the trunnion bar goes through the firebox, it gets very hot, and it's got to have plenty of grease in there so that it doesn't seize up. You want to do that one, I'll lubricate the chain, and then we'll go for a trundle down the road.
Alright, now then, Phil, what have you got this young man doing here?
He's being trained in the lubrication of the engine, Fred. And this is an important part of the engine. Because the trunnion bar goes through the firebox and gets very hot. Different metals expanding at different rates. You've got to make sure there's plenty of the old grease in there to keep it running smoothly. So,
and this is Neil, is it?
This is Neil, yeah.
A trainee.
Absolutely, yeah.
A trainee steamer.
One of our fine.
You've got some glasses like mine. Right, well, are you taking me for a ride, are you?
You bet your life. Come on then, let's pack the stuff away.
Come on, young Neil.
I'll get up first.
Put your grease gun away.
Want to blow the whistle?
As well as road rollers, steam also used to provide the power for fairgrounds. And Fred was always inspired by these showman's engines.
He did actually go to the fairground in the early 1940s during the war with his mum and dad, which I think was Moor Lane in Bolton, and he did see the end of the sort of fairground engines on the making the electricity for the fairground.
One of the first rides I ever had on a traction engine were on one of these, you know. I'm going to ask the driver if I can steer it down the road with him. I think he'll let me, you know. They're all right, Chris? Yeah, right, mate, I'm coming. Hey. Right. Right. I knew a man who bought a fairground engine
And I often asked to play with the thing, but sort of I wanted one of my own, like, you know, you want your own toy, don't you? So about 30 odd years ago I bought a steamroller. And I think I was ripped off. I paid £175 for it. You could buy a steamroller about that time for about £60 and, you know, just beat the scrap man. Anyway, time went by and this steamroller was an incredible wreck.
Remember when that first came and he parked it in Front Street, at front of the house, and believe me, you've never seen out like it. It from the scrap iron. You want to give them £5 for it.
So, painstakingly over a period of 30 years and 2 divorces, which took a long time, I slowly but surely made a new one.
Excellent, in a word. I couldn't fault it. He'd taken meticulous care with every bit of the restoration of this engine. There was nothing about it that I could criticise at all. I've looked at many restored engines and boilers and so on, and I can honestly say I think this was the best I've ever seen.
Fred raised the awareness of steam to very great heights. The steam engine world was a very close-knit world. Everybody knew what was going on in the world amongst themselves, but nobody else did. And Fred appeared on the television with his steamroller, and it boosted everybody's interest in steam. They went to steam rallies, mainly to see Fred Dibnah. But he wasn't at all the steam rallies, and it created a great deal of interest in the both road-going steam engines, rail steam engines and industrial steam engines.
They enjoyed that, didn't you? Hang on.
That's called running away.
Wait a minute.
Right.
Right, we're all right now.
It was difficult at times, but I really took it on board because when I came here, I could see how passionate Fred was about his engines and indeed everything in the garden. And really, that's who Fred was. It was the engines in his workshop.
Oh, let Rod have a go.
I never saw of it anything as being in competition with me and my place in Fred's life. The two things were parallel. You know, I think he loved us both in his way, but I wouldn't like to have hedged my bets. I think the steam engines would have come first, really.
Just back here.
He was certainly seen as the mascot for the steam preservation movement, which is a huge movement nowadays. He was also not quite so widely regarded as popular in the very early days.
I'm going for a pint.
I'm coming with you because I'm not a bloody camel.
There were instances, for instance, when the National Traction Engine Trust, which is the body that looks after the interests of traction engine owners, weren't altogether happy that this guy on the box which whilst he was promoting their cause of traction engines and being out on the road with them, they weren't altogether happy that it made it look like it's one big pub crawl from one pub to another pint of beer, out again to the next pub, another pint.
Fred used to set off from the house probably 9 o'clock in the morning, and we'd get down to the Lever Bridge, get his first 3 pints, and then we'd perhaps trundle off for another half an hour to the next pub. And I kind of invented this phrase. When everybody used to stop and ask, how fast does it go? I used to say to them, oh, it used to go at 2 pubs an hour.
I think, considering, we're not doing too bad.
And that was basically what it was. We used to kind of stop and start. And I used to count how many of these pints he used to drink. And believe it or not, it used to be 16. I remember often counting 16 pints he'd had during one sort of day.
No, it's bloody good.
And also when Fred had quite a young family, they'd be sort of travelling on the trailer drawbar at the back by the living van. All sort of practices which were all a bit, perhaps you shouldn't be doing that. It was showing, bad practices. It made great telly, but it was showing bad practices. So it was kind of a bit of a love-hate relationship with Fred originally. But of course, you can't. A movement like that can't buy TV time like that, and it was great. The way it all ended up, of course, was absolutely fantastic.
When Fred first went on the television with his steeplejacking, and then he brought the steamroller into it, there was an instant massive following at the steam rallies. A lot of people was attending and, to go and see Fred, but also at the rallies when Fred wasn't there, it brought the attendance numbers up. So with being an engine owner, that was very good because, without people going and supporting the steam rallies, I'm afraid they would die a death.
Oh, now then, young man, how are you doing?
All right, Fred, and yourself?
You all right, mate?
Yeah, not too bad.
Don't worry about the oily house.
No.
Used to that,
Right.
Yeah, Wallace and Stevens, eh?
That's right. She's,
amazing stuff.
Apparently, this is the only one of two left.
Yeah.
On an 8-horse single.
For the benefit of the viewers, that's a powerful engine, isn't it?
It is, yeah, she's very powerful.
8 horsepower is the equivalent to a big road locomotive, like Atlas. But it's good for see them doing something in it.
Well, we all like to see them out and about, don't we?
Yeah,
Not stuck in the shed, really. That's the beauty of it. And then everybody gets the enjoyment of it as well.
Yeah. I have a friend who's got a Clayton and Shuttleworth.
Is that right, yeah?
Yes. It's, what year's this one?
1919.
What's furthest you've driven it like, a long road?
Mainly back and forward, up and down the line here, actually.
Oh, you've not been in the middle of the city yet?
No, not yet, no.
That's good fun, that, with all the traffic,
We did have a little run locally with her, and that's nice to see the modern tractors putting a hand up, waving to you, instead of the other way about.
Oh, you get lots of people even put up with the inconvenience of being behind you. I mean, they're not all like that. Some of them come by giving you rude signs and routing the routers.
Yeah.
Best thing to do with them then is blow the whistle very loud and drown them out, They can't hang about it, they've got to keep going, sort of thing. Yeah. So you've got the wife and all the kids with you, haven't you?
Yeah, they all take part in the engine and all have their little bit to do with it.
Yeah.
The passion we've got between us, so...
if you can find a wife that likes them, you're a lucky man.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with it is expense with it all, because no matter what you're doing, it is terrifically expensive. But Fred has brought a lot of awareness to all these projects that are going on, and I think, when people wouldn't visit an industrial museum, all of a sudden they've got an interest on a Sunday to get in the car and go and visit it because Fred's been there, or which helps the museums, which brings the money in, and better things happen, more's restored. So, without a doubt, he has brought awareness.
It is passion. Passion is the word. It was the passion that Fred had for steam that came out in everything he did, either on telly, off telly, at steam rallies. He was just so happy whenever he was near a steam engine of some sort, whether it was a huge beam engine or a traction engine in the field, and that absolutely came out in everything he did.
Magic.